If I were in this movie for just to be the TNA and I had to sit around Jason Statham all the time and stuff like that, and my character doesn't get to smooch him, what am I even getting paid for?
Meet Sara and Samantha.
Two cousins obsessed with exploring the vast pop culture landscape, one recommendation at a time.
In each episode, one clueless cousin shares real-time reactions as they navigate the twists and turns of a pop culture topic selected by the other.
From travel to movies,
Little Debbie's to trashy novels.
Get ready to eavesdrop on the candid reactions and dynamic conversations you can only have with family.
This is Foreign and Familiar.
Welcome to Foreign and Familiar. I am Samantha.
And I'm Sara.
Sara, season finale day. We made it.
Yay, we made it.
End of season 4, Sara. What a wonderful season it's been. I think this one has been a little bit unique because we had a couple ideas in the upfront, and then I feel like we've made a lot of changes while we've been in season, and I think they've all been really good changes, but we've changed some topics, we've changed some things. For our family listeners, we desperately want to review Airheads with Brendan Fraser, and cannot find it anywhere. It is not on streaming anywhere. We tried Pluto TV, for goodness sakes. I don't know.
Blu-ray is like $300 on Amazon.
Yeah, you can buy one Blu-ray. You can't rent it on Amazon. It's not on Mac. That's going to be our unicorn. We will find Airheads hopefully sometime for season 5. But Sara, I can't believe we're wrapping it up.
I know it's crazy that we've come to the end, but I also know that we are trying to be really intentional about recording ahead of time for this upcoming season to make sure that we have plenty of time to make changes to the topics like we did this time and just really be on the ball. So I am super excited to wrap up this season and then just kind of keep plugging away at everything.
Anytime that I get to spend with you above and beyond our normal Cousin Con stuff is always a wonderful treat. As we are closing out season 4, we know that at this juncture, podcasting is always sweeter with a snack. And we always choose Little Debbie and Little Debbie offshoot brands when we need to. So Sara, what snack are we reviewing today?
So today we are talking about the Little Debbie chocolate cupcake. This is a chocolate cupcake filled with cream, topped with chocolatey icing and a decorative white icing swirl. These, I feel like they are the poster child of snack cakes, not necessarily for Little Debbie, because I think Little Debbie is known for other things. But I think if you think about a snack cake, whether it's Hostess or Tasty Cake or Little Debbie, I feel like this is the image that comes to mind.
I would agree. I think Hostess has the moratorium on this chocolate cupcake with the swirled vanilla icing on the top of it. It's so funny you say that because I kind of said the same thing, Sara, in my notes that I have on this. It feels like Little Debbie is producing these because they know that people recognize these types of chocolate cupcakes as a go-to snack or something like that, but it's their version of the Hostess.
Exactly. Yeah. So thoughts on this one, Sam?
I mean, I would say the same thing. I feel like it's their version of a Hostess chocolate cupcake. I thought it was okay. Kind of hard to find. I had to order them. So I don't know that Little Debbie takes a lot of retail space on the shelf with that. And that's probably because they know that they're going to lose out to the counterpart. I think this is one of the rare ones where I don't know that I'd ever necessarily grab this stuff, but I would probably go the Hostess route, which is so weird to say. The other thing I would say is that these are individually wrapped and you only get about 6 in the box. And so it was fine, 180 calories. I ate 2 of them. I thought that they were fine. Again, I don't know that I'd ever grab them off the shelf, but if I did, I would go, I think, the Hostess route. What did you think, Sara?
So I would say this is probably my dad's favorite snack cake variety. So I feel like I have quite a bit of experience in the chocolate cupcake realm. Anytime I go visit my parents, I feel like their little snack drawer is just filled with some variety of these. I agree. I thought it was weird that it came in a single serving because I feel like a lot of the ones from Hostess and Tasty Cake are 2 cupcakes in a pack. Personally, again, because I've sampled several, I think the Walmart brand ones are the best. I think they're the most moist. I think they have the most icing on them. And for my dad's birthday last year, I think I made him a homemade version of these from a recipe that I found on Instagram. So those were really good, and that was a really fun baking experiment for me. So all that to say, I agree with you. If I'm going to reach for one of these, it's probably not going to be Little Debbie, which I found to be quite dry and lacked flavor. Yeah, I would say the Walmart brand ones are better.
It's funny you mentioned a little bit earlier about Tasty Cake. Tasty Cake is huge in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I'm originally from. I don't like Tasty Cakes either, but the big one that's associated with Tasty Cake is a butterscotch crimpet. And Tasty Cakes have these wavy cakes, and that's
Right.
their unique identifier. And everybody in Lankland goes crazy over them. And I was just thinking when I was going through this Little Debbie cupcake and comparing it to Hostess and kind of thinking like, okay, this is and we have one of these offerings too, is what it just kind of felt like to me. I thought Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, in a nutshell, is a butterscotch crumpet from Tasty Cake. You know, it's oddly shaped, a very specific flavor, and people are obsessed with it in and of itself. That's just me throwing shade at my hometown. I think it was okay.
I do have to add, Sam, because as we were talking, I was pulling up both Hostess's and Tasty Cake's website, just kind of wondering what their staple snack is, like you said, what they're most known for. And Hostess does have an iced pumpkin variety of this cupcake right now with a pumpkin cake and looks like maybe a buttercream icing. And they also have maple glazed donuts and a pumpkin spice Twinkie. So not saying we have to try it for the pod, but I think I will definitely be experimenting in that pumpkin realm.
But to me, that cupcake that you just talked about is a completely different product because there's no chocolate in it.
Yeah, it's the same
shape with the little icing swirl.
Shape with like the little swirl. It's cream filled, but yes, there's no chocolate in that variety at all. So they have pumpkin spice mini donuts, caramel apple mini donuts, and a caramel apple glazed pie, which you were a big fan of the Little Debbie apple pie, so you might enjoy that.
Little bit of a downer on the chocolate cupcake. Again, I think it's fine. I don't know that I'd ever pick those anyway. I will try the Great Value brand at Walmart next time, Sarah, for Cousin Con. I mean, we got a lineup of things that we need to try, but
right. And they come in a giant box. I think you get 24 cakes in a pack.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds fantastic. This Little Debbie, you got 6. It was not.
So we'll add it to Cousin Con.
Little bit of a drag on the Little Debbie cupcakes, but speaking of drag, man, do we have an explosive season finale topic for our family listeners today. Sarah, what are we reviewing?
So today we are talking about the 2008 dystopian science fiction action film Death Race, starring Jason Statham, Joan Allen, Ian McShane, Tyrese Gibson, just to name a few of the amazing people in this film.
All right, Sarah, so why did you recommend this? Why did you think that I would like it?
So I was first introduced to this movie maybe about 10 years ago. I went to Universal Studios, as I tend to do when I don't go to Disney. And it was the first time that I was going to ride their Fast and Furious ride. I was not familiar with the Fast and Furious franchise. It was a new ride. I wanted to try it. It's the most disappointing ride I've ever been on. It sucks.
I have no doubt.
I rewatched a ride through last night and awful. All that to say, it did spark an interest in me in the Fast and Furious franchise. So I set out on kind of a couple of month journey where I was just really into racing fast action car movies. So I watched the first 3 Fast and Furious, stopped after Tokyo Drift. I'm sure you can figure out why. I watched all of the Xander Cage, like Triple X movies, and then I also watched Death Race. And so I recommended it to you because we've been kind of talking about this love of action movies, these 90s, early 2000s with lots of driving sequences. And so I thought this would be a really fun movie to watch. I thought you would appreciate the cast in this movie because it is a lot of really well-known people. And I thought it would be a really fun, exciting way to end the season.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no shortage of action. I know that you are a big action fan. It's one of the things that I love about you the most, Sarah. So let's tee it up. What do people need to know if they've been unfamiliar with Death Race?
So this is kind of an interesting film to talk about, and in terms of a cultural note. So this is actually based on an earlier movie, Death Race 2000 from 1975. Sam, do you happen to know anything about that movie? I just discovered it, like details about it, while I was preparing for the episode.
Of course I don't.
Okay, so
Enlighten me, please.
So the whole story was actually based off of a short story called The Racer by Melchior. I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly. That was published in 1956. But the 1975 movie is kind of the same plot that we're seeing in this 2008 movie. The cast of the 1978 movie includes Sylvester Stallone, so that might be one worth exploring in the future. And Martin Kove, who I know you have watched Cobra Kai. He is.
And you will be watching Cobra Kai.
I will be watching Cobra Kai. Yeah, so we have some familiar names and faces in that movie. Death Race from 2008, the movie that we're going to be talking about today, really had some mixed reviews and has continued to have mixed reviews. It's only 41% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It's kind of just been a movie that has done okay. Most of the ratings that it's given are like B+, B, along those lines. I think it has a close following by people who like this type of action sequences, but I think the overall perception was not very positive. There were also 2 direct-to-video prequels, Death Race 2 and Death Race 3, which not sure who made that decision, and a direct-to-video sequel that were made several years later. There was a lot of changes in casting in those, so there are only, I think, a handful of characters who do continue to make appearances in all of those movies, but for the most part, I think the main cast is not used much after this. One other thing to kind of note, throwing it back to a discussion that we had a little bit earlier this season, there was a remake of the 1975 film in development since 2002. So it took a while for this movie to actually come to fruition. But the reason I brought this up is because one of the issues was a dispute between Paramount Pictures, who was initially going to do this film, and the producer duo, Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner. So Tom Cruise did not remain on the project, but he was one of the reasons that it was not being made initially. And then it was picked up by Universal Studios and became the film that we're talking about today.
Well, I texted you during the middle of watching this because I was starting to do a little bit of research, and I said, I just have no idea how I completely missed this movie and all of the cinematic universe.
I haven't really compared the timelines with like the Fast and the Furious and when that all kind of started, but I do think in like the early 2000s, there was kind of this boom of these action movies that involved a lot of driving and a lot of racing, and I think this was trying to be the next big one. And I mean, it doesn't have like 13 sequels like Fast and Furious, so I don't know that it was successful, but
you know, I'm really not a Fast and Furious person. I watched Hobbs and Shaw, which is The Rock.
Right.
So I'm doing a little bit of work with an automotive company right now. They do a lot of different types of auctions, and I was just there yesterday going over a couple things. And I think what the rumor is now is all of these old classic muscle cars, Steve McQueen cars, everything like that is the generation of people that are buying cars, our parents' age, boomers, you know. But what's happening is now these Fast and the Furious cars are starting to be the ones that are really the high attraction. So as millennials are kind of getting into their middle age, have their wealth, or looking to buy the cars, it's not the classic 60s muscle cars. It's these Fast and Furious franchise. Again, I kind of just miss the whole thing. What I appreciate about Death Race is it just doesn't try to do too much, right? It just leans into what it is, warts and all. And you end up having just a lot more fun than you think that you're going to. So, the one thing that I did want to mention, Sarah, that I was really surprised about is that Death Race was from Paul W.S. Anderson. And he is known for a lot of different things. I think the biggest thing that I got really excited about is he did the first Mortal Kombat movie. Sarah, have you seen Mortal Kombat?
I think we just had this conversation the other day. I've seen the remake that just came out a few years ago. I think it was 2022. I've not seen any of the previous Mortal Kombat movies.
So, okay. So, yes, we're lining up season 5. Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation have to watch, because the new one is the first time where they kind of took Mortal Kombat as seriously as you can take Mortal Kombat. And the second one of those is coming out in October. And I'm super excited. You know, Mortal Kombat's getting kind of a serious treatment, but these old ones are so hokey, and he did them. And so we absolutely have to watch that. He's also done all of the Resident Evil films. So I really like Resident Evil, the video games. The movies aren't based on the video games, but I really like the Resident Evil franchise. I used to watch my brothers play that when we were younger, obviously. And Zach Kreger, your boy, is going to do the new Resident Evil reboot next year. So we'll probably have to go see that together, because I think we're interested in that for different reasons.
Yeah, for sure. I need to get all caught up on all of his new stuff.
Absolutely. And then he also did Alien vs. Predator in 2004. Obviously, we talked about Death Race. And he's really kind of a very prolific action type of director. So I was really excited when I saw him pop up. And the one thing that I will say is Robin Shou is in this movie. I couldn't even recognize him. Robin Shou, who plays 14K, plays Liu Kang in the 1995 Mortal Kombat, who is the main character. So it's always interesting to see directors work with actors that they like to work with in various capacities. So that's all I wanted to say on the director front. But I was really excited, Sarah, and I thought that because he had done this movie, it kind of has unlocked a couple different trails for us to go down and explore in the next season. Sarah, unless there's anything else, maybe we go to break so that I'm not spoiling all of my thoughts on it before we get into the plot.
Yep, let's cut it to break, and then we'll dive in when we come back. Ready to dive into the world of Death Race. So this movie, one of the things that really cracked me up, because again, it had been a while since I watched it, is that this movie takes place in a futuristic 2012. Because again, this movie was released in 2008. And so in their 4-year prediction, the US economy was going to cause a lot of issues, increased in crime rates, increased in unemployment, privatization of prisons. And that is kind of the world that we are set in.
I just wrote in all bold, is this right now in the US? Is this what we are dealing with right now? Is that people are stealing, they're going to jail, and now we're starting to turn things into sport?
We are introduced to our main character, Jensen Ames, played by Jason Statham. Any thoughts to add on his character before we kind of dive in, Sam?
Jason Statham is smoking hot. In any scenario that he is in, I don't think that he gets put into that conversation, I would say, of action movie stars or of super attractive men as often as he should be, because he's smoking hot. My issue with Jason Statham and his character here a little bit is all of his characters are always the same. He's a mumbler, so he does mumble a lot. But I will say, just as a blanket statement on this, something that I found to be very annoying, the sound mixing on this movie is horrendous. You cannot hear what anybody is saying. I found myself turning it up when they were talking, turning it down when the action sequences were happening. I ended up just having to put closed captions on. I think that it didn't do him any favors in the talking part, because I do think he, in general, is a mumbler. But as far as the character Jensen, he plays the same character he always plays, like a rough and tumble guy that's just in jail and has to make the most of it, I guess.
Right. I definitely agree with all of that. I did the same thing, turning the volume up and down the whole time. Really annoying.
It was really egregious. Honestly, it was really egregious.
On a separate experience, love the soundtrack for this movie. I will put it on as background music wherein I can control the volume and there aren't other people talking. But yes, horrible mixing on the film. Jensen Ames is working at a steel mill that is going out of business, so he and the rest of the workers are getting their final paychecks. Of course, it's just nickels and dimes for the amount of work that they've done. He heads home to his wife, and like you said, he plays the same character, so it's the same like, oh, we'll make it work however we can kind of conversation. Anything to add on his wife, Sam? Because I know you had some thoughts while you were watching.
Yeah, I just don't think that she was even remotely hot enough to be in the conversation to be married to Jason Statham, let alone procreate with him. I understand looks aren't everything. I understand that there are emotional connections. But you cannot tell me. I mean, when he gets into the jail and stuff like that, all the girls are like your quintessential, like 2000s Megan Fox and Transformer types of girls. No, but he comes home. He's a doting dad. He's caramelizing some onions in a saucepan, goes up to take a shower and comes back, and the wife is dead. The baby's crying. And he sees a masked man do finger guns at him, which I think is a very common hand gesture, but they make it act like that hand gesture is this like super unique thing the whole time.
Right. It's like the thing that haunts him at night. His wife is dead. He is kind of knocked out. They place the knife in his hand, very much frame it so that he killed his wife, at which point he is then arrested and taken to prison at Terminal Island Penitentiary. Again, the prisons have been privatized. So here we have the warden, Claire Hennessy, played by Joan Allen.
Second time Joan Allen is on our podcast.
I think Joan Allen, my like favorite role of hers, I think, is probably in all of the Jason Bourne movies, which we've already talked about how much I love those. So
she kind of plays the CIA character now. That's like her renaissance. It's like in Face Off, she was playing the homely housewife,
right?
And then all of a sudden 10 years later Hollywood was like, no, she's a stone cold fox in her age, and let's make her a very stone cold CIA agent. So I'm here for the Joan Allen glow up, not just, and I'm not even talking about physically, I'm talking about in the role she's taking. I'm here for it.
Right. She is cold in this movie, which is awesome. So at this particular prison, they have an event called the Death Race, which is broadcast. It's how they earn a lot of profits. There's a lot that kind of goes into this. And essentially, it is just these prisoners in these souped up cars driving until one of them wins, dies, is injured. There really anything goes.
One thing that I really liked about this movie is how they portray the death race as an actual sporting event. So how they're introducing a lot of the different characters. It would be like how you're introducing wrestlers or their video packages to get people hyped up. There are different storylines going in, and they do a big call, almost like a pay-per-view. You can buy all 3 levels of the death race for this price. You can tune in to just the second stage. You can buy them individually. I thought that that was really sharp, how that was done to kind of introduce all of the rules, and that the event was a mainstay of culture. It's almost like the Super Bowl.
And of course, there are all sorts of rules in place for the prisoners. This is not an opportunity for them to try to break out. There are safeguards in place. They have weapons in their cars that can't activate until lap 2. There are guard towers and helicopters. You know, everything is, as much as they are being broadcast to the world, everything is still very, very locked down.
Sarah, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you watch Twisted Metal?
It's on my radar. I want to watch it. I haven't started it yet. Have you watched it?
I've watched the first season. I'm dragging on the second season, but the second season's where everything happens, and it actually, like, the first season's almost like a prequel to set up the second season.
Got it.
But Sarah, I watched my brothers play Twisted Metal growing up a little bit. I think the big famous thing about Twisted Metal is that there's a ice cream truck that shoots grenades, and it's a big heavy set guy, and he's called Sweet Tooth. And so Twisted Metal has all these characters, kind of like Death Race does. And watching the action, I mean, I have notes all throughout here where I just have in all caps, this is Twisted Metal. So Sarah, I don't know what you're doing waiting on Twisted Metal, but Twisted Metal has Anthony Mackie in it. It has Beatrice, Rosa from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is in it. And I think the big thing crossing over and just some pop culture for all of us, the actor that plays Sweet Tooth, who is the iconic ice cream truck guy, is Samoa Joe, who is a professional wrestler from All Elite Wrestling. He is the physical part of it. However, the voice is Will Arnett. And so because Sweet Tooth is always behind a mask, Samoa Joe goes through and does all the acting, and then they voice it over with Will Arnett. So it's always interesting during the press junkets is you have Samoa Joe and Will Arnett both sitting there talking about the Sweet Tooth character. And I just find it so interesting that Samoa Joe can't get his vocal performance up there, that they feel like they need to hire somebody in. So anyway, this is a big, long digression, but yes, the second season is out, and maybe I'll start watching that this weekend, and we can chat about it. But anyway, it is very much like Twisted Metal, Sarah. If you like this so much, which I understand that you do, and I understand why you do, that's just like a bullseye. The only thing that would make it a little bit more up your alley would be if there would be a small town booster club that the Twisted Metal team had to win over, quite frankly.
That's true. I am disappointed if that's not going to be present. Well, now that we're at the season finale and we've watched everything for this season, maybe I'll go start Twisted Metal after we record. The crowd favorite driver is known as Frankenstein, and it's because he's been in so many different crashes and accidents that he's just very scarred, kind of pieced together like a Frankenstein, but he does wear a mask all of the time, so nobody knows his true identity. When Jensen Ames gets to prison, of course, he's roughed up a little bit by some of the other groups that have already formed in the prison and gets into a fight in the cafeteria, at which point he's taken to the warden's office, Joan Allen, and she offers him up a deal.
A couple things just on the cast here. The troublemaker prison guard, played by Jason Clarke. Jason Clarke, who I know as a grown-up John Connor in one of the reboots that is really the same story. I think he's John Connor in the Daenerys one, which was an alternate timeline to the first chapter, because God forbid we get anything else in the story. And so I know him as, hey, that's a guy that played John Connor once. In that version, though, Sarah, John Connor is compromised and he becomes a bad guy. But that's, anything to not tell the actual story. Let's move it along. I am sorry. I will say, when Jason Statham's going through this onboarding process, I have in all caps, I mean, he looks so good. Jason Statham is a guy that guys want to be and girls that girls want to be with. And we do see a faraway Jason Statham booty shot. So I was not upset that he was being, quite frankly, abused by Jason Clarke, John Connor. I was like, I'm here for it. He looks really good in that scene.
Yeah. We are gifted quite a bit of his body to look at.
I don't even know. I looked up his age. He looks exactly the same. I mean, he looks exactly the same as he always has. Mm-hmm. So
timeless. He's a vampire like Paul Rudd.
Absolutely. Except I don't even want to get started. I think that Paul Rudd being named Sexiest Man Alive is where society exited to the point of no return. And sexiest man alive, like you see Paul Rudd and you just want to rip his clothes off and just be like, take me to Pound Town. Come on.
The warden offers Jensen Ames a deal because she has discovered that he has a history of driving cars racing. So she says, hey, Frankenstein died after the last race. He's still a viewer favorite. We're not getting the views that we did when he was driving. So here's the deal. You can drive as Frankenstein. And the rule is if you win 5 of the races, then your sentence is over. You get your release papers and you get to leave. Frankenstein has won 4 races. So her deal for Jensen is drive as Frankenstein, get us more views. If you win 1 more race, then you get to go free. If you don't take this deal, then you know too much and you have to serve the rest of your sentence in a solitary confinement cell. Naturally, he's trying to get back to his daughter, who is, with a foster family, getting adopted because her dad is a murderer, apparently. So he takes the deal and he is introduced to his crew.
And Joan Allen says, anyone can wear the mask, but not anyone can drive the car. So
Very dramatic.
My note here, Sarah, says that I feel like I've seen every single part of this movie before in some way, shape, or form. Like, it does feel kind of, as we're setting some stuff up, like it's just a little bit generic. He gets introduced to his crew, but they do a really good job of setting up the stakes, I think, of the death race. I have here, there is a 62.2% mortality rate per death race. And in the last death race, 20 people died, including the original Frankenstein. Frankenstein is just a myth. Anybody can be the Frankenstein.
He is introduced to his crew. So he has Coach, played by Ian McShane, which I think this is Ian McShane.
What a boondoggle casting for this movie to have Ian McShane in it. My goodness.
Right. This is his second, I think, appearance on the pod because he was in Kung Fu Panda. I don't think he was in anything else that we've watched.
Is he?
He's the leopard, the snow leopard.
He's my little boo thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just know him from Deadwood.
Coach, who is kind of the maybe like the brains of the operation of this pit crew, kind of knows the ins and outs of the car, the rules, talks through, the defensive systems that they're putting in, the offensive systems. Probably the one that they talk about the most is this Tombstone, which is this 6-inch thick steel plate that's attached to the back of the car as a way to keep everybody safe. We also have Gunner and Lists, who are also on the team, again, working on the car. They're kind of like the pit crew, essentially.
He's the little baby face.
That's Lists, I think, but I
was always thinking, like, what is he in jail for? I don't think they ever say what they're in jail for. Yeah, I would say this is where I think that the tone of this movie is a little bit uneven, because these four are palling around and telling jokes, and then all of a sudden Tyrese and his gang come up and it's like all serious, and then it goes back to like, well, you only need to drive around the track once, because if you need to go around a second time, you're never going to make it anyway. So we got to make sure it works. It's interesting. I mean, they kind of like build this camaraderie like they're a team. And like you're saying, it's like a pit crew, but they're also kind of looking out for each other in the gang yard as well. It's a little interesting of a tone.
It is. And you brought up his biggest competition in this race, Tyrese Gibson, who plays Machine Gun Joe.
I have in all caps, Tyrese, ? And also, is he not in Fast and Furious?
He is in Fast and Furious.
Okay.
Well.
So then what are we doing here? Like, I have it at, and then I have in all caps, Tyrese is the bad guy. LOLOLOLOLOLOLOL.
He kind of had a moment in the early 2000s. He did this. He did several of the Fast and Furious films. He was in Transformers with Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox. So, like, there were just, like...
He was in Transformers.
Yeah, a few years.
If it was a car movie in the mid-2000s.
He was in it.
Got it. Okay, well, good for him. I mean, he was a singer at some point in time. So was Ludacris.
It seems to
and
be...
LL Cool J.
It seems to be a trend. You were a singer, now you drive cars.
Ice Cube did a couple movies around this time too. They did kind of do this thing where they made rappers or kind of music artists transform into action heroes at some point. I think, I never watched the franchise, but I think Ice Cube took over for Vin Diesel in a movie and an action.
Yes, the Xander Cage, the Triple X movies. Vin Diesel was in the first one, and then Ice Cube did the second one.
Sarah, you're so funny. You're like an Encyclopedia Britannica of action movies in the 2000s. It's kind of insane. I did just see that Ice Cube is in a remake of War of the Worlds in Amazon, and it's getting such bad reviews that you feel like you have to watch it to go see it. It's almost like The Room, I think.
If you're comparing it to The Room, I definitely have to watch it.
So we meet Tyrese, who doesn't know that Jason Statham is Frankenstein. I think he thinks that Jason Statham is on Frankenstein's pit crew, and he's like, yeah, well, you tell your boy next time I'm going to make sure he doesn't get up. I thought for sure he'd be dead.
The way the death race kind of works is that on race day, these very like Megan Fox type women are all bussed in so that they can ride with the drivers. Other than sex appeal, I truly don't know what their role is. But Frankenstein is paired up with Case, who has been his longtime partner. She's played by Natalie Martinez, who I do not recognize from anything else.
And she looks good, and that's exactly right. I mean, she just kind of she's not really much of a navigator, although maybe that's what it is. Like, it's somebody to just kind of help you in the passenger seat. I think the one thing I did like is Tyrese was known for only having male navigators or co-pilots, and he kills them all very quickly because he just gets mad at them. So I actually did like that scene when he kicks the one guy out, and then the other assistants are arguing over who needs to be the new navigator for him because they just know it's just until they die. The one thing I will say that we talked a little bit when we did The Mummy last season about how the studio was like, okay, you can have Rachel Weisz in glasses for exactly 45 seconds. You will put her in a wet nightgown within 17 minutes. The one thing I will say is they get around. I feel like what's good for the goose is a little bit good for the gander here. Jason Statham gets told right away when he gets in the car has mirrored glass. So you don't have to wear the Frankenstein mask. You can just drive around as yourself and nobody can see into the car. And in my mind, I thought, yeah, the studio's not paying for Jason Statham to be sitting under a mask the entire movie. So I thought that was really funny. They get that out of the way right away.
Overall, the effort into masking who Frankenstein really is so low. While he's competing in his first race, I think he had a conflict in the past with the prisoner Pachenko, who is one of the racers. And in the race, he notices the same handgun gesture that the man who killed his wife made. So he kind of puts all of the pieces together, confronts him, realizes that he's the person who killed his wife. And he ends up losing the race because he's kind of putting all of these pieces together. So when the warden kind of confronts him about his loss, he also brings up that he learned what he learned about Pachenko and finds out that she was actually the one who had his wife killed because she just wanted a replacement for Frankenstein.
The first stage of the death race is awesome. Halfway through when we get to this point, I realized, because at first I'm like, okay, I've seen this. This is like just an amalgamation of everything I've seen before. I put in all caps. I kind of get it. Like, I kind of get why people like this. Again, it's action, it's the girl, it's Jason Statham, and it takes itself so seriously. Quite frankly, it's better than Mission Impossible 9 and the one that just came out. I think that this is where it gets a little wonky on the sense of, okay, Joan Allen needs somebody to race as Frankenstein. So instead of finding someone to race as Frankenstein, she picks this former racer that's working in a steel mill and decides to kill his wife to then get him incarcerated in the system so that then she can give him this deal to race as Frankenstein. It's like there had to be a much more direct way to go about that.
The purpose overall was to just really pit him against the warden, which I feel like they didn't need to try to do. I feel like just the fact that she is profiting off of these prisoners racing to the death. And at one point, they kind of all come to this realization that no one is getting out. There's a rule that you can win 5 races to get your release papers. They're not going to let that happen. And so I feel like the system is corrupt from the beginning. You didn't need to add another layer to make her look more corrupt. We would have believed it the way it was.
Right. There's a lot of talk in the first stage of the death race. Jason Statham really puts Case, asks her a couple questions in the car and stuff and says, did you kill the last Frank? And she said, I didn't kill the last Frank, but I did mess with his rear power system, or I rest with his rear weapons because I was told by the warden that he can't win because he can't get his freedom. And then if that happens, I'll get my freedom. So yeah, exactly what you're saying. I do have 2 notes here though, Sarah, before we cut to break. Number 1, is this a Christmas movie? Because at the end of the first stage, when they're doing all this crazy stuff and they're shooting napalm, and it's like, it's really wild, it's really fun. But Case is standing up out of the roof and she lights something and she looks at the guy behind her and she goes, Merry Christmas. And she throws the TNT. Is this like Die Hard? Is this, and I was looking when they were advertising it like it was sports, like you can tune into stage 2 now. I'm like, is it on Christmas Eve? No. So I think that Merry Christmas is hilarious because it makes zero sense at all. And then the second thing I have is when they do start pitting him against the warden and she kills his wife, she does end up telling him, if you win this race, you'll get custody of your daughter back. And Sara, now we're racing for custody of a child. And so we started the season with arm wrestling for custody of the child, and now we are ending the season together as racing for custody of the child. And I know that was not what we had intended, but look at how it all works together.
I love when it comes full circle like that.
So we are through the first stage of the death race. We have all of the masks, no pun intended, off. We know where everybody's loyalties lie. So I think this is a good place to kick it to break. And then we will close out stage 2 and stage 3 of death race.
We are talking death race. Before the break, we were talking through stage 1 of the race. Now we are moving on to stage 2. So at this point, Jensen Ames is aware that the warden is pulling a lot of the strings, which he obviously knew, but more so now knowing that she was responsible for him coming to the prison in the first place. And has kind of realized that the system is very rigged and it's going to play out exactly the way that she wants it to play out to get the views.
And we see Tyrese living up to his name and moniker. He cuts first of all, I mean, he kills his assistant, which I actually thought was pretty funny. And I think that they play it that way. Like, it's not like it's a big serious thing. It's campy and over the top.
Yes.
He's getting ready for the next stage of the race. And so he's cutting scars into his cheek. And I just ended up laughing so hard during it because I'm like, I just can't. Like, Tyrese, like, come on. But he plays it. He's in the role here, but I thought that was pretty funny. We have the stage set for stage 2.
In this race, Jensen's kind of goal, I would say, is to just get Pinchenko. He wants revenge for his wife being murdered. And in this race in particular, we see that there are other things that can come into play. The warden releases an armed tanker truck that she calls the Dreadnought. Of course, the point is all of it is to increase views. And so most of the racers are killed by the Dreadnought, but not Jensen Ames and not Machine Gun Joe.
I think before this, what's super interesting is Jason Statham really tries to level out Pinchenko and like targets in on him. There is a really cool scene where they're driving, Jason Statham's driving backwards, Pinchenko's driving forwards, and they're shooting the guns at each other. And then he ends up dragging Pinchenko out of the car and breaking his neck, looking right at the camera and being like, the warden's next, you know? I thought the Dreadnought scenes were cool. I think it's a great way to knock out a bunch of these characters that we've been talking about without putting a ton of blood on people's hands. It just proceeds to kind of get a little bit campier and more over the top. So I will say that I thought the first half of this movie was really like, when I said, I get it. It's really kind of strong. It's the right amount of camp. It takes itself seriously. Like if anybody told them that this was a B movie, they certainly didn't know that. And then it continues. And I think the peak of the movie is stage 2 here in the Dreadnought, when there is only Frankenstein and only Tyrese left to battle it out on the final stage.
Before they get to the final stage, Coach, played by Ian McShane, is kind of watching a replay of the race, and he catches something on the screen that he points out to Jensen Ames. Sam, did you see it at all, or did you just kind of figure it out?
No, I gotta be honest with you, Sarah. I feel like watching this was a fever dream, and there was so much that was happening. And you're trying to take notes for the podcast, and that's why I sent the text and said, "There's just no way. You just kind of have to watch it." So I know I definitely missed some things because I'm busy watching the napalm get launched onto the car behind them. And then these jacks come out and it's like all this stuff. So I miss this kind of part a little bit until Ian McShane brought it up.
Right. And I was just checking because I knew what was going to happen because I've seen this movie before, but I couldn't see it on the screen. They linger on it long enough to let you know that this is going to be a key detail. And then the next line of dialogue is, can you put an extra tank of gas on the car? So it becomes very clear that this is going to turn into an escape plan. There are a couple of things that have happened leading up to this. First of all, typically there's no communication between the cars during the race, and Jensen very quickly breaks that, and he asks at several points, can you put me through to Machine Gun Joe? And like Sam, you said earlier that it takes Tyrese a while to kind of piece together that he never sees Frankenstein's face, but he also never sees Jensen. And at one point he kind of says, I think I've heard your voice before. Like he's the only person in the movie with an accent and you can't figure it out.
Tyrese, get with the program here.
In the prep for stage 3, Jensen kind of goes over to Machine Gun Joe's side of his little bay area, which typically they set it up very early. You don't go over there, they don't come over here. We don't really interact with the other groups. So they have this conversation off screen, but again, it's very obvious that it's all leading up to this escape plan.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't think it was very obvious. I don't know why out of all the things that you can't put a 2-minute conversation between those guys on the screen. Because I end up going, what is going on here? And so again, maybe that was me. I don't know that I think it was that obvious that they were all of a sudden going to continue to cosplay being enemies, but work on an escape route together.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've watched this several times, so it could have just been I knew what was going, but either way, they are in it together. Jensen has made the warden angry enough, mess with her profit enough that she decides to just attach a bomb to his car just as a last safety measure in case she needs to blow him up.
And she has Jason Clarke, John Connor do it. And then we find out here that Jason Clarke was in on it too, and that they're in it together. Just in case Frankenstein is not going to win.
The final leg of the race is here. It is the final day of Death Race. And so they are starting off to the race the way they normally would, both acting as rivals in this race. Now there was kind of one section that I did want to point out, because the very first scene of the movie is the old Frankenstein racing, and one of the last lines of dialogue that he has is release the Tombstone, that big shield at the back. And we get a repeat of Jensen saying that same thing in this final leg as he is working through this plot to escape the island. And so I did like that little bit of a callback to the first scene of the movie.
He's got Case with him, and they don't really go full-blown love interest, but kind of. But she jumps in the car and says, well, the warden said I have to make sure that no matter what, you don't win.
Another callback to the beginning, Machine Gun Joe shoots a rocket at Frankenstein's car, except this time instead of hitting him, he blows out a section of the wall, which opens up a path that they can then use to escape. Now, I don't think we really set this up at the beginning, but this prison is on an island. It's about a mile-ish out from the coastline, and there is a one road that leads in and out. So in order for them to escape, they would have to, of course, make it to that single road, bypass all of the guards, the helicopters, all of those things to make it to safety, which of course they managed to do. So not only are we watching this entire race, and that's what this movie is kind of focused on, but now we have an excellent chase sequence in which Jensen Ames and Machine Gun Joe are both driving off of the island, kind of charging these guard stations. Case is helping them by acting as a decoy to avoid the helicopters.
I'm sorry. I think this would have been just a lot better if I knew that what the plan was going to be. All of a sudden, they're saying, oh, make a run for it. I'm thinking, who is dressed as Frankenstein standing on the top of the car? And of course, I don't even know how you can make modeling the Frankenstein mask sexy, but she is like standing there and moving in slow mo. And like, it's almost like you can see her pouting her lips behind the Frankenstein mask. And then the cops are, the helicopters are focusing and she's got her hands up and stuff. Meanwhile, the other two are running away. My notes are, okay, so they just leave her to be the distraction while they just get away. And she's totally fine with it. This is where it just loses it a little bit for me. I do think it gets a little bit long. And then it just gets stupid and bizarre like Paul Blart does. Like, we really like Paul Blart up until it tries to become a legitimate action movie, and then it's ridiculous. That's kind of like this seems to get the tone and knows where it's falling. And then the last third really lets it down, in my opinion. But Sarah, my other note here says this is kind of like a stadium stampede, but for cars.
I think that's a very good description of it. Yeah, because they are just like driving all over the place in these very, very tight spaces, very low spaces. So yes, essentially Jensen bails out of the car. Case says, I have my release papers. The warden has to release me no matter what. So she acts as the decoy, which, to your point, Sam, at any point they could have just shot her. So it is wild that she was just like, oh yeah, there's nothing they can do. I will be the decoy. The warden, of course, tries to blow up the car. She pushes the button. It doesn't work. And it cuts back to Coach in their bay with the other end of the bomb disabled there, and he says nobody messes with my car. Yeah, so Machine Gun Joe and Jensen are now free to hop on a train. They talk about going to Miami. They have some vacation style shirts ready to go, and Case is the distraction enough for them to get away.
Then they go 6 months later, and what do you know? Jason Statham has his baby back. We just completely bypass all that. Shows up, gets his baby back, and him and Tyrese are in some tropical country, and they're best friends. They're besties.
Yep, so they're working in Mexico. Of course, Case shows up with a muscle car that she won in a card game to join them. They get there happily ever after. And I can't remember if it happens before that or after that, but I think it's before that. We cut back to the warden's office. She's being praised for the viewership. She's getting cards and gifts, and one of the boxes that she opens is the bomb that she had attached to Frankenstein's car, which then blows up her office. And another cut back to Coach, which I thought this was an interesting moment, because it's almost like a fourth wall break where he looks directly to the camera and says, I love this game.
Like they're going to set up the sequel. Yeah.
Right. And I think the intent was that he's speaking to the audience. So I thought that was an interesting take. But I think that pretty much sums up Death Race.
The one thing that I will say is him and Case never kiss. They never imply that when she comes in, it's kind of like she's just the female part of the crew.
Yeah, I mean, they hug at the end, and I think she kisses his cheek maybe, but you're right, there really isn't any sort of love interest relationship that is developing between them. They're just friends.
If I were in this movie for just to be the TNA and I had to sit around Jason Statham all the time and stuff like that, and my character doesn't get to smooch him, what am I even getting paid for, quite frankly?
Right. Yeah. Hey, maybe it would have been an A+ if they had. So
Maybe.
you never know. Well, that wraps up our discussion of Death Race first, because we've already talked about the fact that there are prequels, there's a sequel. This was a remake of a 1975 movie. So do you think that you will explore any of the other parts of this universe?
I enjoyed this movie. I brought this movie up in conversation to somebody yesterday, and I think that here's the thing. I'm 17 years too late on the conversation. Everybody's going, Death Race. Yeah, that old movie with Jason Statham. And I'm like, yes. So here's what I'll say. Probably not continue, only because I am aware that the prequels and sequels are all direct to DVD and do not star any of the continuing cast. So I don't know that I like the intellectual property of Death Race enough to be watching the B-level reboots of it. Whereas like for Mortal Kombat, yes, I do. I think that I will watch the second season of Twisted. It made me want to watch the second season of Twisted Metal. So I probably won't continue watching the Death Race stuff, but if they would ever do a theatrical release or do a proper sequel, I would definitely be tuned into it the second time.
Right, I would agree with that. I've not watched any of the other movies in this universe, and I think the big hesitation for me is the direct-to-video tagline. Aside from the fact that it's hardly any of the main cast, that already tells me what kind of movies these are going to be. I do have to say, though, learning today about the 1975 movie, especially with Sylvester Stallone, I feel like I want to check that out at some point. So I might end up watching that one. So Sam, you said you already brought this up in conversation. Would you recommend this movie to anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I've already been talking about it. If somebody said they were into it, like, I don't know that I'd be like, oh my gosh, you have to watch Death Race. It's the best movie in the whole world.
Right.
But if it comes up in conversation or people are looking for some type of car action, maybe this one just kind of got lost in the shuffle for me with all the Fast and Furious and things like that. But yeah, I think I'd recommend it.
Let's rate it to a Little Debbie. So what would you compare it to?
So this movie is campy. It is over the top. It is wild. And it's surprisingly really pretty good. So I went with the unicorn cake for this one because not only is the unicorn cake enjoyable and it's a bunch of bright colors and flashy, you don't even know, like, you're eating like a fever dream. But we talked about the ice creams a little bit earlier this season, and the unicorn cake as a strawberry ice cream, as I said, was a very, very surprising entry. Like, I was like, oh, this is good. And this is better than a lot of the ones that we've tasted that maybe I thought were originally my flavor. So I picked the unicorn cake for this one. I think that for what it is, you know what you're getting. It satisfies, but you know, I don't always have boxes of unicorn cakes lying around. How about for you?
I think I'm going to compare this to the Devil's Square. I think that it was one that was around for a while before I found it. Like I said, I think it was like 2015, 2016, maybe even 18 when I watched it. So I was already about 10 years late on the first watch, but it, I think, has all of the components that I really enjoy, like how the Devil's Square has the chocolate cake that I really like, the white icing, the chocolate frosting on the outside, all of the components together that I think make a really nice treat. Not something that I find all the time or that I immediately reach for, but I always enjoy whenever I have it.
And I think in both options, we can say Jason Statham is yummy. Like Little Debbie
Yes, it
snack.
doesn't matter what cake you compare it to, it's going to be delicious.
I'm allowed to objectify every once in a while, and I'm doing that in this moment right now.
I love that for you. Well, that is it for our episode, and that is it for season 4. We are done. We're wrapped up. It's crazy.
I know that we've said it a little bit as we've gone through. I think that this season was a little bit challenging for me to just kind of get momentum. I think, Sarah, what we need to do is sit down and just kind of plan out a bunch of different things. But highs for me are obviously always seeing you. And I think that we've done some new things this year, and you've really gotten the YouTube channel up and going. So what's been interesting, I think, on the push for this season is I think that we've actually set ourselves up really well for future seasons because we found new snack cakes and we found new topics, but it was just a little bit more putting our brains together, I think, to figure out, okay, what do we want to do? How are we finding these new little Debbies? Paying $13 for the old-fashioned donuts, which I would do all over again.
We'll say that's a low of this season.
Well, I mean, it was good though. I mean, they were good. If they were bad, that would have been a huge low. Yeah, no, I can't believe we have 4 seasons in the book, and I feel really, really amped to do 5. So I'm excited for it. We are committing to doing a 5. So
we sure are. Well, in the meantime, we will be around. Keep checking Instagram, YouTube. We will have new content up for there. You can always find us on Instagram at FauxFamPod, and you can email us at foreignfamiliarpod@gmail.com.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for eavesdropping on us.
If you can't get enough of the Cousin Chronicles, head over to Instagram and follow at FauxFamPod for more in-depth info and behind-the-scenes details.
Or email us at foreignfamiliarpod@gmail.com.
Foreign and Familiar is a Flynn & Flynn production.
The theme is Colorful by Allerlie von Nicolai.